So, you don't know where to start your ISO 27001 implementation, you don't know what it takes to implement this standard. In this video, I'll show you what are the steps in the implementation. So after watching this video, you will have a much clearer idea on how to approach this kind of a complex implementation. I've made this video for beginners who are doing this for the first time, and I'll explain this whole topic using very simple to understand language. So if you are a person working for a small company that needs to implement ISO 27001, this is the right video for you. Now, if you want to learn more about ISO 27001 from me, click the subscribe button below to see my other videos about this standard. So why is this ISO 27001 implementation important? Well, if your company is going for the ISO 27001 certification, first you need to implement the standard, because if you want to show to the certification auditor that you are compliant with the standard, first you have to implement whatever it says in the standard itself. And to become compliant with the standard, you have to go through these general 7 steps that I'll explain now. The first step is to establish the project. This means that you have to define who is the project manager, who is the project sponsor, and what are the major milestones in the project. Then the second step is to define what are the security requirements that are expected from your company. And these requirements typically come from 2 sources. The first one is the government, meaning various laws and regulations that specify on how you have to implement security. For example, European Union's GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, it specifies how you have to protect personal data. The second source of requirements are your clients. Very often you might have companies that you made some agreements with, and in these agreements these companies have specified security clauses on how they expect you to comply with security and what you have to implement. Now, these requirements are very important because you have to implement these requirements further on as you go through the implementation steps. The third step is to make some key decisions related to your information security. So the first one is to define what is your ISMS scope. So how far are you going to implement security in your company? If you are a smaller company, typically this will be your whole company. Second is that you have to define what is your information security policy, so the top level document which defines the responsibilities and other important things about your security. And the third thing is you have to define what are your top level information security objectives, meaning what you want to achieve with security. So you can say that, for example, you want to decrease the number of incidents, or that you want to get some new clients because of your ISO 27001. The next step, fourth step, is to perform a risk assessment and treatment. Basically, this is the core of ISO 27001, because the standard requires you to list all the potential problems that can happen with your security, with your information, and then figure out which kind of safeguards or controls you have to implement to decrease these risks. So this is the crucial step in your implementation. The fifth step is to write security policies and procedures, which will help you define how you're going to implement these security controls that you identified earlier. Now, for example, let's say that your important client has required you to implement a certain type of two-factor authentication. So when you write your access control policy, you're going to specify that this two-factor authentication must be used by your employees. Or let's say that your risk assessment has identified big risks related to a certain type of database that you have in the cloud, and then you define in your backup policy that you will perform the backup every 6 hours because of these risks. Now, it's one thing to write policies and procedures, and a very another thing is really to make sure that everyone is complying with these policies and procedures. So the sixth step is really making sure that everything that you have written in those documents is really implemented. And this is usually done through training and awareness programs, where you actually train your employees on how to use some new technology. For example, if you have to use this new 2FA system, you actually train your employees how to use it, and you also make them aware of why these changes are needed, so that there is no, I would say, resistance to these new security things. And you have to measure how your security is doing. So once you start implementing, once you start doing these things on a regular basis, you have to measure if this is something, if the security is really on the level that you expected. Okay, and once you're sure that your security is running smoothly in your company, then you go for the final step, and this is actually the preparation for the certification. And as part of this preparation, you have to do three things. First, you have to do this internal audit, which is basically internal check if everything is working fine. Second one is management review. This is where your top management has to make some crucial decisions around security and take as inputs main things that are happening with security. And finally, you have to perform these corrective actions, which is basically a systematic way to fix things that are not working fine. And once you do these three final steps, then you are actually ready to go and invite the certification auditor. So if I can summarize what is the most important in these 7 implementation steps, is that you first collect all the requirements from government and from your clients, and also assess what are the biggest risks that could happen to your information, and then figure out how to use security controls, safeguards, by writing policies and procedures and making sure that your employees understand why they are needed and understand how they need to comply with these new security rules. Okay, I hope this was helpful, and you can click this link to sign up for a free trial of Conformio. This is Advisera's ISO 27001 software designed specifically for smaller businesses, and it provides you with clear steps in the implementation, all the templates that you need, and overall it makes your project much easier.